Hello, everyone. It's Mike Myers, President of the Society of Insurance Research, and welcome to this month's President's Chat, where I get to catch up with past presidents of the SIR, take a stroll down memory lane and find out what they're up to today. And this month, I'm with Sharon Markovsky from Verisk. And Sharon was president from 2014 to 2017. I think she holds the record as the longest consecutive serving president of the SIR. So it's a great honor to catch up with her. So welcome to the President's Chat, Sharon.
Thank you. So fortunate to be here and really enjoying them, Mike. So I'm so glad that you've put these together. I get to see some blasts from the past, which is awesome. And also hear from some of the presidents that I actually didn't overlap with. So it was really nice. I really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, just a couple that you didn't overlap with.
True.
That's right. Like, everybody connected to SIR. So I'm glad that maybe I introduced you to a couple new ones. So it's great.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump right into it. So normally I ask just a few of the same set of questions, and I normally start with, for those who don't know you, and I'm sure there's only a few in SIR that don't. Tell us about your background and how you got into insurance and what you're doing today in insurance.
Sure. So my insurance journey is probably like a lot of folks' insurance journey. I was going to joke around and say that I'd always want to be in insurance. And in fact, one of my Halloween costumes was a State Farm agent. But that would all be a lie. My insurance journey is a lot like other people's journeys. I fell into insurance. I was fortunate enough to coming out of college. I knew what I wanted to do, which was shocking, right? And my degree was flexible enough that I could do that. And that was market research. And the reason for that is I had an amazing consumer behavior professor at Rutgers. And he really got me interested in consumer behavior and therefore market research. So right out of college, I went to work for a market research company in Princeton, New Jersey. And I learned a lot. And I learned most specifically the basics of research. And that's important. That's going to be part of one of my things that I might say to one of the questions you may ask me at the end here. I learned the basics of research. And then within 2.5 years, I was hired by one of my clients that I was working for, because I was, at that supplier company, and it was MetLife. Worked there for a number of years. And in fact, I worked for several carriers throughout my career, doing market research mostly. And I'll get into that in a minute, but I went to work for Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I went to work for Employers, which is a now national workers' comp company, and loved that. I also worked directly or indirectly for insurance companies through a consulting company that I had with my husband for a number of years. So, but let's focus a little bit on Employers. That was the workers' comp company. When I got there, that's where my insurance and journey and my career journey kind of morphed a bit. When I got to Employers, I was solely focused on research. That's where I started. But then over time, I got a new boss, and then I actually took over a lot of the marketing functions for Employers. So I was still in charge of research. But then I got a bunch of other things that I was in charge of. One was the Employers brand. So anything that had the Employers logo on it, I was in charge of making sure, approving its use. The direct mail marketing for Employers, and also the brochures. So it was a pretty big job, but I still got to do market research, and that was my baby. But I was doing all these other things. And then I got a call from an SIR friend and past president who you interviewed. About an opportunity to work with her at Verisk. And that's where my insurance focus and my job focus really changed, because even though I was still working for the insurance industry, I was going back to the supplier side, and I was doing communications and strategy work for a sales area, as opposed to being working in the either strategy or marketing area. So it was a big shift. Then I had an amazing opportunity to develop new markets for Verisk's claim search team, and I did that for a number of years. And then now I'm one of the client engagement executives for Verisk. So even though my job today doesn't have marketing or market research in the title, I can tell you market research back that I have. One of the reasons why I've been successful in all of the positions I've had, and I'll just do a plug for the SIR, the fact that I've made such amazing friends and connections through the SIR, that has very much shaped my career, and just personally, it shaped me as well.
Great. That's a lot of contributions in different types of companies and progression through your career to try different things. So that's exciting, and an accomplished career story. So congratulations on achieving it.
Right?
That's right. That's right. So okay, so I know you mentioned SIR a couple times. Tell us, how you got initially introduced to SIR. I'm assuming you're talking about Candace that brought you over to, to Verisk. So how'd you get involved with SIR and progress up to, your leadership role as president?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned before, I was president for 4 years, though. Wow, it feels like it was longer than that, but maybe it's because you are the president-elect, and Gary was president for 2 years, so I was president-elect for 2 years, and then your immediate past president, right? And Jen was president for a number of years. So it felt like I was president for like 7 years, but actually 4. But I was on the board for 10 years, which included the time as president. So I have a lot of great memories, and one of the memories that I want to share, I'll just say some of them are, they're great memories. Some are amazing, some are sweet, some are bittersweet, but, and it really is hard to pick a few, right? Because over 10 years, I have had some really interesting memories. But one of the ones that I wanted to highlight first was my first experience with SIR, which, Mike, I'm not even sure you know. So this was when I first started working for employers, right? So a bunch of years ago, right? I don't know, probably 15 years ago, something like that. Maybe it was more. I don't know. Math's not my thing. For a market researcher, you'd expect it would be. I think it's probably more like 18 years ago. But in any event, I'll remember my first experience with SIR and Ed Budd specifically, who was the executive director at the time. So I was interested in going to my first annual conference, right, for SIR. But I didn't know anything. I found it through a Google search. So that answers your question. Like, I didn't know anybody. Now, eventually I would meet people that I sort of knew, kind of like actually meet them, but I sort of have met them before, but actually in person at an SIR conference. But so I didn't know anything about SIR. And I had to decide between a SIR conference and a Market Research Association conference. I was drawn to the SIR because it was focused on insurance, right? And but the Market Research Association one was something I had been used to, right? So I call Ed Budd, and so I get on the phone, and like immediately I started to a diatribe saying to him, where's your agenda? I see the agenda for the Market Research Association. I can't believe you don't have an agenda. I want to come to this meeting and you have no agenda. Poor Ed, right? He doesn't know me, Adam or Jane or whatever, or Eve. So I go in and he's like, I can give you an understanding of what we're doing. We don't have a finalized agenda yet, but I can give you an understanding. Anyway, so interestingly enough, I ended up going to the Market Research Association one and not SIR. Right. So that was not my first meeting that I went to. And I was so sorry that I did not go to the SIR conference, but I had instead gone to the Market Research Association one. But I needed like something to bring to my boss and say, okay, this is what I'm going to learn, right? This is why you're spending this money to send me. Anyway, So, so my first memory is giving Ed such a hard time, but I have to say I loved working with Ed on my time with the board and as president. But this is sort of an apology to Ed, and he might not even remember that this happened, but I remember.
At least you gave us another chance because you came back later. So.
Yeah, but I knew, I mean, just from what I read and you know, that was online at the time, and I have to say, there was a lot of change that has happened for the SIR over time. But before I get into that, I want to give another story, which was early on, right? So this was my actual first conference for the SIR that I attended, was actually a spring conference. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know a soul, right? And but I knew I was going to go, and I was excited because it was a workshop, so I was real excited, hands-on. You know, the market researcher in me was all aflutter, right? So I didn't know anybody, and but I get this email out of the blue. I was on a string of folks. This woman from Progressive sent out an email and said, hey, we're going to this, you're going to the conference. I see you're part of the attendees. I'm a tennis player. They have a tennis club that's attached to this hotel, and they have rackets there. Does anybody want to play tennis? Because I play tennis. And specifically she said, I'm not a great tennis player. That's it. I'm not a great tennis player, but I enjoy playing tennis. So if anybody wants to play, let's do it. So I was like, oh yes, I love playing tennis. I haven't played tennis in a long time, but I need to get some exercise, and this would be a great way to not just be stuck in the gym on a treadmill or elliptical machine. So I'm like, I'm in, right? So I'm sure you know who this person was, Carol Smith, right? So I'm in. There was probably 4 or 5 of us that decided to play, right? So again, she says, this is just for fun. You don't need to be, you know, a good or great tennis player. Okay. So what Carol neglected to mention was, like, she was semi-pro, right? I have not been moved around a tennis court in a vain attempt to catch a ball. I mean, to hit a ball in my entire life. I mean, within the first 10 minutes, I was out of breath. Perhaps I was a bit out of shape too. I don't know, but but I have to say, I enjoyed that experience, even though, you know, at the time I was feeling like maybe there was a fib or two involved in the invitation, but I had such a fun time, and Carol and I became such great friends. Yeah. From that. So I would say that's also one of my really fun memories and sort of bittersweet memory of the SIR. And so there was that. Another thing before I get into the change was the first time I was the annual track chair or the track chair for the annual conference. Right. And so when we were planning out, we had a bunch of cities that we were considering, right? And we were, you know, we're data people, right? So we were saying, where's a good place to have this, you know, just from where our members were, and accessibility. Because for me, I was like, I don't want any conference to be more than a half an hour drive from the airport, because that stinks. If you get in, you fly all day to get wherever you're going, and you got another hour, you know, by cab. So, or you rent a car. So it had to be half an hour, and we wanted the most amount of people that could go. So I said to the board, I think we should do it in Pittsburgh. If you would have seen the looks I got for wanting to do the annual conference in Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh gets a bad rap. I think, you know, people had some old ideas of what Pittsburgh was, but one of the objections was perhaps the cold. There could be snow, and you don't know what the weather's going to be like. Okay, fine. That was a good objection. But I'm like, no, I think we should do Pittsburgh, right? So I got the folks to agree. They're like, you know what? You're in charge. We don't have to deal with it if there's an issue. You know, it's all on you. So I was like, all right, fine. So not only, you know, pat myself in the back. Did it break the attendance records in Pittsburgh? And the content was fantastic. It was really fantastic. But what I remember the most, and Mike, I don't know if you went to that one, because we were just really starting in earnest with the health track, Ron Zeza put together the most amazing treasure hunt.
He still talks about that treasure hunt, so I've heard.
It was, I'm a little amazing he remembers it, amazed that he remembers it. Because it was like so much, he like put so much effort into trying to figure out the clues and everything. It was almost like you were doing an escape room. Like you couldn't escape the bar that we were in because there was like several bars. I mean, he must have had friends for like all downtown because he had like, I don't know, 5 bars or something that he allowed us to do this in. So he wrote up clues and stuff and we had to find the clue before we could leave the bar. But of course you might've had a drink or two while you're trying to figure it out. So it was so much fun. And, we did get to the last bar and figure out find the last item, but it was so fun. We must do that again when we're in person, hopefully next year, 2020, I would love it. But it was an absolute blast. So kudos to Ron Zez, and I think his sister helped too, for doing that. But so that was let's think outside the box and really make it an experience, which I loved. So there's that. Okay, so now the SIR itself. So for those that have been long-time SIR members, so I'm saying like 10 years, at least 8 or more years, I'm sure you've noticed that there's a considerable shift in how the SIR operates. I mean, the first real shift came when Ed Budd came to us and said, you know what, I'm thinking of retiring. I think I can do it. And I'd like to spend more time, more time with my family. And so, what do you think? And what are we going to do? And then we said, all right, well, how do we think about the SIR? It is an organization, it is an association, but, in some respects, it's a business, right? So how could we maybe better organize ourselves since, we are going to become, more of a business. We have to, right? So that's when we entertained the idea of going to a management company. And people might not know that Michelle's not directly employed by the SIR, but, and that's the great thing. You wouldn't know that, right? Ed Budd was an employee of the SIR. Mm-hmm. So we decided to make that shift to say, you know what, if we have a management company, that actually could help us because we have access to so many new things, a new website opportunity, more marketing help, more assistance from a broad level than we could get if we just had an executive director. Now, don't get me wrong, Ed did an amazing job. Ed Budd did an amazing job, but he was limited by what he had access to, right? And the SIRs is a very good steward of the money that we collect from our members. So we didn't want to overpay on anything. And we wanted to make sure that we were providing the value to the SIR members, right? So when we were reviewing all this, we're like, you know what? We could still stay in those tenets, right? Providing the value, not being expensive, making sure we're spending wisely. And by having the management company, we could. So then we moved to a management company. And when we did that, then that opened up a lot of possibilities for us. We were able to digitize. So what insurers are doing now, going digital, we truly were able to do that. So we did a lot more, and I'm sure people see, we do a lot more email marketing, but the content is amazing. And also just how we can present the information has gone to another level because we have the Harrington Group. So that was one thing that I thought was amazing. And then there were new things, new ideas as the board changed, as the board should change over time to get new ideas. We had people like yourself that came in and say, hey, there's these things that we can do, or, for the health track, let me, get involved in the networks that I have and introduce them to the SIR so we get more synergies between organizations. So that has been amazing. Hopefully, and I think people know, but they may not know that I got you on the board. Like you answered the call, and I was like,
That's
hey,
right.
Mike. So, we just met, but just wondering if you might want to consider joining the SIR board. I'm sure you have other things to do, but, I think you would enjoy it. So hopefully you have enjoyed your time. I mean, yeah. I suspect you might, right? Because you became president. So, but that was also one of the things I just wanted to share. But thank you for all the work that you've done, not just with these past presidents interviews, but all of the great work you're doing in the background that people don't see. As a president, there's a lot of work. It's even actually, and people will probably be shocked by this, I think the president's role is actually harder than the annual conference role, because the annual conference role, yeah, there's a lot of work but it's in a fairly narrow amount of time, but president is 24/7, 7 days a week, right? So,
Yeah.
and there's a lot to go on. And oh, by the way, you have a day job and I had a day job, right? So, but I think you're doing an amazing job. And I am so glad that I made that call to you.
Yeah, so am I. It's really opened up a lot of opportunities to me, and you know, I think everyone knows that SIR is a great passion project of mine, and while it might take a lot of effort, it doesn't feel like work because it's so satisfying. So I appreciate that. And yeah, when I tell the story about how I got involved, you're certainly, you know,
happy doing my stuff, and all of a sudden I get this call.
Yeah, I think one of the first calls was when I said, hey, how do we get life insurance in the conference? And you were like, well, why don't you come to Chat Chair, you know, and make that happen?
You're like, dang it.
Yeah, that's right. So the squeaky wheel management principle.
No good deed goes unpunished. Yeah.
That's right. All right, so let's pivot a little bit to you know, and you know, unlike some of our past presidents who've retired and have stepped away, like Ed Budd, and are enjoying, you know, golf and family and pastimes and things like that. As you said, you and I are you know, our careers are still going on, and we're still, you know, working every day, still living it. What are the big, you know, insurance trends that you're following that you think provide either, you know, a great opportunity, risk, or, you know, something that just really intrigues you that's going on in insurance today?
Yeah, you know, I could probably spend like hours and hours on this. But, so what I decided
you're in a
to
great position at a great company that's impacting a lot of these trends. So no sales jobs here. Just tell us what's on your mind.
For that, right? Yeah. So I boiled it down to three, because I think there's a lot of what I would say probably could somehow be pigeonholed into these three. So the first thing I'll just say is all of the M&A activity that's going on in the insurance space. It is huge, and it's something that at the SIR we've been talking about. We've had panels on or just presentations on for years, and so you would think at some point this has to settle down, but it's just consistent, and everything you read in the industry, it's going to continue, and maybe it has to as the industry evolves, right? But that's one of the things that is absolutely important for the trends for us to watch. Not just that it's happening, but what companies are insurers, who they're buying, and insurtechs, what they're buying, and then companies outside of the insurance industry, they're jumping in by buying insurance companies or insurtechs. So the M&A is something that I definitely think is one of the trends. Another trend, and I kind of alluded to it, is the impact of insurtechs just in general. Now, this is nothing new here. Like, this is not an aha moment, but I just think it's interesting how the insurtechs really are not just impacting the space, but changing the space, right? And it's making everyone look at insurance differently. One of the good and bad things, right? One of the things that maybe concerns me a bit is the commoditization of insurance. So with some of the insurtechs, you'll see that as they go digital, they make it easy, you know, we're the non-insurer, the anti-insurer, right? The thing that it concerns me is that it could further commoditize the space. So that's something that I really am sort of watching with the impact of the insurtechs and the M&A too. So that's one thing. But from an insurtech perspective, one of the more interesting things that I'm seeing is insurance companies buying insurtechs for what it seems to be an industry offering, right? We're very familiar with Insurity, right? They're owned by Allstate, and they're providing a service out to the industry, right? But they were kind of the only one for a while. But then you had American Family. They bought Bold Penguin, who had just bought, I think, Risk Genius, right? So it's really interesting to see what the industry will do next in that perspective. Are they going to be an insurer for their own policyholders? And are they also going to provide a service to the industry? So I think that one's really interesting to me. The last thing that I'll say is the desire for insurers to go digital. Notwithstanding my commoditization discussion, I think it's really interesting that insurers want to be more digital, because in the past, insurers truly had been grandfather's insurance, where it was, if it wasn't manual, if it was, let's say, automated in some fashion, it wasn't truly digital, right? So there were some manual processes in place. I think that is going digital is going to be a fundamental change that's going to have long-lasting impacts, both amazing impacts, and then it'll have maybe some other interesting impacts that I think aren't known yet. And I'm not going to go into it because I could spend hours on it, but I just think it'll be interesting that going digital will have long-lasting impacts for the industry, I think. But the only thing I'll just say about this is I don't believe that this going digital is going to replace people. I think what we'll end up doing is doing things differently to support the digitization. But it needed to happen, right? Because we have all these people retiring, right? What's the average age of the insurance person? The last time I looked, it was like 57. I mean, that's pretty darn scary, right? Anyway. So those are the three things that I would say that I'm watching.
All right. No, that's great. That's some good stuff. And yeah, and you mentioned how digitization, especially like if I just picked that one, and M&A, a lot of those things are relevant, within the SIR for sure. We see it a lot. We're trying to provide those same experiences to our members that a lot of our carriers and solution providers are providing to their clients. So it's a very interesting time.
Yes.
For sure. So speaking of our members, what advice do you have, for the SIR, as an organization, as for our members, for our prospects even, what kind of recommendations do you have for those constituencies?
Sure. So I'll just say for the SIR board and folks that are heavily invested in the SIR, stay the course, keep evolving. Like the insurance industry is evolving, keep evolving. I think that what you all have accomplished is amazing. And I feel very fortunate to have been part of the evolution. So evolution is important. For the members, or for the non-members, let's say, for people that are seeing this that might not be a member yet, join the SIR, get involved. So not just be a member of the SIR, get involved. My career has been so impacted and blessed from my membership of the SIR. I can't even begin to tell you. My career has flourished in ways that it never would have, I think, if I hadn't been involved in the SIR and really gotten involved, being on the board, having, being part of the annual conference or the spring conference, getting involved. So that's one of the things. Just personally, and I don't think this is going to be anything that would be out of the ordinary for anybody that happened to be a member of the SIR, and that's continuous learning. This industry is changing much more quickly than it ever had been. You can't do business as usual. You constantly have to learn. Now my next thing goes with this. So continuously learning, continuously seeking out information, but here's the problem. You got to filter out the noise. There is so much information available. We're on constant overload. And it's getting the right balance between having enough information and too much information. You know, we as market researchers and competitive intelligence professionals, we love data. So I would say you got to stay focused, stay the course, and don't get distracted by the minutia that's involved in having that much data. And then just the last thing is be ready for change, because the only thing that's constant is change, and this industry is going to consistently change over the next decade. I can't wait to see what's next for the industry.
Yeah, it's exciting times. And so it's great to have a network and a resource that can help you with all those challenges that you laid out. And so
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have the job I wouldn't have the job I have today without Candace Thornton through SIR. I mean, it absolutely was SIR is why I'm at Veris today.
Yeah. And I've heard that story and been part of a couple stories like that. And it doesn't always show up in our list of member benefits, but sometimes, you know, networking can lead to different career opportunities and things like that. And so I've seen it happen a lot in SIR. So, well, I think that's our time. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate all of your contributions to SIR, one of which was getting me involved.
Same here.
But many, many more significant, you know, contributions than that. You really transformed the organization and set us on a great path to financial security and developing, you know, benefits and offerings and creating a pool of talent that has served the SIR well. And it was a pleasure and continues to be a pleasure, you know, partnering with you on the success of this organization. You continue to serve even on our executive advisory committee today. And, you know, I think, you know, you're always, you know, I think they say, you know, once you're in SIR, you're always, you know, part of SIR.
It's kind of like the mafia, huh?
That's right. That's right. So,
but a good mafia.
Yeah, a good mafia. So I don't know if we can carry that tagline, but I like it for this call.
It's like the mafia. Yeah. No, but it's great. I mean, it's fantastic. I have built so many friendships over the years, and I just love the fact that anybody that I meet through the SIR, if I have a question, I can reach out to them, and they'll, one, pick up my call, and two, they will help me as much as they can. And if they can't, they'll find somebody for me. So, and I'm not alone. So yeah. I love it.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Sharon. I appreciate you being here today. And I know how to reach you when I have a crisis. So,
it's always on.
That's right. So thank you. You take care.
Thanks, Mike. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.